one here, ZBrush beta testers. Make sure I give credit where credit's due. Oh, okay, so this is the guy who I linked to his ZBrush page, PavLander on ZBrush Central. He did a lot of this cool stuff here. And he also did vector displacement meshes of just these different types of vector displacement meshes that you can just go through and just drag out. Now, this doesn't mean you could do drag rect stroke and just do one by one. You can also just throw them in here. Let's do something fun with that. We'll play around with that a little bit. So if we wanted to do a furry spear here, we need vector displacement. So what I'm going to do is go into, let's make it easy for us. We'll go into project here, maybe. And we'll go into miscellaneous. I'm going to go to the brush 3D template. Okay, so now that we're in here, we can go through here. And again, this is just vector displacement. So I'm going to grab my snake hook here, and we'll do like a fur thing. And then we can go up here to geometry and subdivide this up. We can also smooth this down and say this will be fur number 1. So I'm going to go ahead and do a brush. Under our brush settings here now, we have brush. Create, and we're going to go create, we can do brush from mesh. But first we need a brush that we can kind of steal from, or at least use the properties of. So I'm going to go and grab this Chisel 3D. And there's a lot of cool Chisel 3D stuff in here. If I want to start with one of these, I can take this vector displacement and kind of use it. Of course, I'm going to want to crank up that resolution to kind of get the full effect there. Let's go ahead and turn that lightness up a little bit, like so. But we're going to be recreating this brush. I'm going to take Chisel 3D, we're going to go ahead and clone this off. And now we're just going to go through here, and we're just going to hit delete mesh, just to kind of get rid of all those things. And now we have our own Chisel 3D 1 brush with nothing in it, possibly. Yeah. So now I can do brush from mesh, and now we've got our own plane 3D that's a vector displacement because it's in there now. So now what I can do is I can go ahead and I can undo back through this, or I can go, you know what, let's go to deformation, and we'll do morph to grid. Let's put that all the way back. And then on this one here, we'll do one, we can mask this thing out. Invert that mask, and then we can like use transpose for some of this stuff if we want to. And we can go ahead and do another one here. Again, is use snake hook here. So we'll do 3 variations here. I'll do this one that kind of twists over to the right. And we'll go ahead and pump that resolution up here. And we'll do another, go back to our brush and do another from mesh. And we'll do one more that maybe is a little bit stubbier here. And then we'll do again from mesh. Go back to our brush here. So now I've got 3 different variations of this. So what I can do is we'll go back to our sphere 3D here. And now we're going to subdivide this up a bit. So now you can go through here with a drag rect stroke, and you can go ahead and just start pulling in where you want the stuff to go. You can also say, you know what, let's make this a little easier. We're going to go through and we're going to do a dot stroke, and then under the stroke menu here, we're going to turn on lazy mouse, and then we got our lazy step. In fact, let's go ahead and just dock this to the side. So now we can just drag this stroke out here, like so, and then so that'll kind of get you your hair in that direction. And then we can also do change your lazy step to kind of space these out a little bit more. And then you can go through and do let's see if we can get a little bit fancier. So since these are all basically kind of alpha insert mesh brushes, so now you can do multiple alpha brushes like here. So if I go over here to the brush chisel rectangle, you're going to see there's a bunch of meshes loaded in here that'll be converted to alpha on the fly. So now even with these things, you can use these as multi-alpha brushes. So for example, I can again change this to like a dot stroke and just drag these out. Go to our stroke lazy step, and then we can just kind of drag these things out. Cool thing about this is you can also go through here to the brush modifiers, and we can go, okay, I want to do multi-selector. So if I do one, that's going to cycle through my variations as I drag them out. So you can also mix that up with our brush. So we go to brush here, do Chisel 3D. If we change this back to a drag rect stroke, you can just like drag rect out one, and now you're going to see it's just drag recting out that one here. And the reason we're using VDM is because it gives us underhangs. So we can use this to kind of get really complex shapes. Again, if we go back to this Chisel 3D, you can go nuts. And I can hit M to select these, or you can select them up here as well. So you can go nuts with like how it's displacing your mesh, and it's getting underhangs, and it's going through and underneath. And also something as simple as a nose here. Again, just remember, you can go in here to your dot stroke and just start making, you know, crazy spines or whatever based on, let's go ahead and turn lazy mouse on. There we go. So you can kind of create spines here. Another thing I want to, you know, you can do it that way. You can also go in here to your brush, alpha and texture, and your high magnify. Now you have a magnify in here, so if you want a little bit of a different effect, we're going light to heavy to light with our pin pressure, and you're going to see it kind of inflates and bloats the mesh. And if you turn that back down to 1, you're going to get more of that light to heavy to light. And again, I'm using a nose for that, and it already looks like a really cool like face hugger spine, but all it is just a nose shape. So very cool. Anyway, back to what we're talking about. So if we go back here and we're dragging these things out, and we're over here under the mesh select. So we're like this one, we can drag it out, we can take this one, and we can drag it out, and we can take this one, we can drag it out. Now, of course, you can also go through and do the whole dot stroke here and drag them out, and then go here and drag them out. You can also go through and cycle through. So if you change your multi-mesh selector to 1, that's going to cycle through these meshes. So now it'll cycle through 1 at a time. It'll go forward. Or you can do, if you hold down Control, variation selector. 1 cycles forward, 2 cycles backward, 3 is random. So we'll go to random. And now every time you drag out a line, it'll give you a random selection to cycle through. So you can kind of maybe use that. Mixing these up, you'd have to use it as an insert mesh brush, because there is a way on insert mesh. So if you go to brush, let's go ahead and do that. So if you use insert mesh brushes, we're going to go to brush, curve, no, brush insert, and we go to, well, that's a good one, insert curve brush here. You're going to see in here there's these vines, and if you choose the vine, you're going to see we're just going to start at 26. It's going to do the random cycling, and it's going to do a variation of 4. So starting at 26, this is number 26 here. Actually, I think it's 27, but it'll start here. It'll cycle through 4 variations, and it'll cycle through them randomly. So when I use an insert mesh brush, it'll just do random repeating of those insert mesh brushes, all 4 of those at once. So as I drag these out, it'll just be a random a number of these things being populated throughout the mesh here. But of course, that doesn't, I don't think that'll work with your alphas. It works with insert mesh brushes, but not with your alphas. So I don't know. And as far as like fur and mass, you can also use, that's sculpting fur. Have I done a hair tutorial? I think I've done a hair tutorial. It might have been on Pixelogic's channel, or a fur tutorial. If it's like a massive amount of fur, I would use like NanoMesh. So instead of taking all those meshes and using vector displacement, you can use NanoMesh to populate fur on here. So for instance, let's drop that color down just a bit. If we go in here and we say, let's duplicate this off, and we'll just make this a quick Dynamesh here. Low res Dynamesh. Lower res than this. There we go. And we can kind of snake hook this around here. So we kind of make this like, and you can make this as furry or not furry, or like multiple furries as you want. And then you can use this as your nanomesh here. So I would maybe even go so far as to say, you know, that'll probably be fine. But let's go ahead and do a Z plugin here. Decimation master, preprocess current. And we'll decimate this down to like 0.5, not 0.05. Something really low, because we're going to be duplicating this a lot. And then I can just use this as my nanomesh here. So now I can go back to my, oops, we can get rid of this. Oh, actually, let's clone that off. And then we can delete that. And now with the sphere selected here, I can go and hit reconstruct to go back to our original, delete higher. And now I go in here to my nanomesh brush, insert nanomesh on polygroup all. Or if I don't want to do it on polygroup all, I can just do it on like this section here. Or it is still be polygroup all, but a limited polygroup here. So now we can go to insert nanomesh, hit M. And there's different ways to create insert nanomeshes, but this is just a quick, easy way. And now I can go ahead and just populate that out. And then I can go to our nanomesh properties, and we can say, you can do random distribution if you just want to kind of randomly distribute these things. And we can also do under the alignment, we'll say align to normal. And if I want to also, I can just let's go to modify topology, align edge, and that way we can do no alignment here. And now we can kind of go through here and let's say, let's take our rotation. So it's rotating the way we want. And also the offset, we can kind of stick that in our mesh here. And now we can do our variances. So if we want to do a little bit of variances on all of these things probably, and also width, length, and height, you can kind of start getting fur going on here. And again, if you want to just, you can do random distribution, or if you don't want to do random distribution, you can also do like fit or fill, and that'll give you a little bit more of that. But you can also just go through here and just kind of go nuts with your little fur shape. And of course you can do multiple fur passes. So if you're like, okay, I like this one, now I want to insert another fur, so then you can go ahead and select another type of fur that you might have, which I don't, but if you want to drag it right back on here, just start dragging it out and then hold down shift, and that'll add another indice, and then you can kind of intermix different variations of your fur on here. So Z rotation, here, offset, you can kind of play with these settings here, and then again, go through here and do your length, width, and height variance, and then randomly distribute these so you can kind of pepper in different types of fur. And of course you can make this into a DynaMesh if you want to. You can do inventory one to mesh a couple times, or we can just go up here to geometry. And what I'm looking for here, convert BPR to geo. And now we can take this. If you want to, you can just make this all a DynaMesh as well. You'll lose a little bit of functionality, but you can kind of use that to do fur maybe. A lot of different ways. You can do fiber mesh as well. Use fiber mesh to do fur and convert that to geo.